I'd like to call this Monday, May 1st, School Committee Business Meeting to order. Mrs. Yell, can you take the roll, please? I am here.
Sarah Hall.
Here.
Bruce Menon.
Here.
Steve Cole.
Here.
Brian Callahan.
Here.
Juliet Walker.
Present.
Brianna Higgins.
Here.
Thank you very much. Can we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd like to turn it over to Vice Chair Hall.
Good evening, everyone. Do we have anyone here for public comment tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to student recognitions.
That's quick. All right. As we do in every meeting, we'll be recognizing some students and maybe another reintroduction of one of our employees as the new assistant principal at the Brez. But for tonight, we'd like to recognize the 7 high school students for their volunteer work, helping the Newburyport Human Rights Commission with the setup of the community iftar held at the high school on March 28th. As we all know, this was a tremendous event for the community, but each one of these high school students assisted with the setup for the event, as well as helping out throughout the night with the food, and then at the end, cleaning up for the event. Taking time out of their busy schedules to be part of our community, and we're just very, very proud of all of them for their volunteerism in dedication to Newburyport, but also to our school system. So at this point, I'd like to call the mayor up. The strategy behind this, because I left the certificates right over there. You can bring those up. So tonight's students, I'll call them up and maybe we can give them a round of applause right at the end. So we have Lily DeJordy, Catherine Duchesne, Charlotte Cayley, Miguel Nye, Audrey Powers, Devin Davis, and Maya LaRosa. You guys can all stay up here. Congratulations. All right, we'll do a quick little photo op, and parents feel free to get close. All right, thanks everyone. Congratulations. And our next recognition, this is a person that is familiar with school committee because she was recognized with one of our awards earlier in the year in January. But we're very proud to announce Allie Burns, who will be the new assistant principal at the Bresnahan School. She has multiple certifications, pre-K 6 principal, sheltered English immersion endorsement, elementary school teacher, grades 1 through 6, early childhood at all levels. Allie's background, she has an extensive background in education with over 15 years working. She's currently serves as a math instructional coach at the Bresnahan School. Prior to time in Newburyport, she was an elementary classroom teacher for grades 1 through 4, both in Swampscott and Reading. Allie completed a Bachelor of Arts in Education at Endicott and received her Master's in Education American International College and has done all of her postgraduate work at Curry College. So congratulations, Allie. Come on up. All right, thank you all very much.
We'll now take a brief recess.
All right.
This, right? Just-
Yeah.
okay, that's-
Perfect.
Okay, I think we're ready to jump back in with the consent agenda, starting with warrants. Mr. Callahan?
Yes, we have some warrants. I move that the following name bills of the Newburyport Public Schools amounting in the aggregate $409,577,000.13 be approved and forwarded to the city auditor for payment. There are no conflicts.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have two sets of minutes, both from last week, to approve this evening. The first one is from our business meeting on April 25th. Everyone was in attendance. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Okay, can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then we also have the minutes from the April 27th special meeting from last week. Everyone but me was in attendance at that meeting. Are there any corrections?
Move acceptance of the minutes of April 27.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll abstain. Okay, so we're already up to number 6, the DESE-sponsored program Equity in Action Network presentation.
All right. So we're, part of our superintendent memo, you may have seen some of those references to equity in action in the working group. As we're finishing off the school year, Mr. Abrams is kind of going to talk towards that a little bit in all the work that we've been doing. As you have seen in your packet, so we're one of 13 districts that was selected to participate in this working group. It's really to facilitate best practices around real problem-solving implementation of equity strategies throughout the district. And this working group will help shape DESE's strategies for supporting districts throughout the state. So we're kind of honored to be part of this, and it has been a lot of work. For everything we do, we tie it directly back to the district goals in our strategic plan. So this work fits in nicely with the Portrait of a Graduate, fits in very nicely with our strategic goals, school improvement goals, and really ties back to the administrator and educator evaluation. So it's all just really enhancing a lot of the good work that we've been doing. And the working group overviews, myself, Lisa Marie Ippolito, Wes Pierce, Dr. Abrams, Allie Burns, who was just here, and Title I teacher Rebecca Stewart. So we've been meeting monthly webinars and workshops where we collaborate with other districts, and we start to develop our self-assessments and action plans. Dr. Abram has really taken the lead as a facilitator working with the state, that we've already had a couple visits coming into the district and looking at a lot of different aspects, from the academic to student life, schools, and Dr. Abrams will follow up and touch base on the wonderful work. Very similar to the work we've done with Michael Eatman, who's also still working within the district. This work just, once again, just fits in nicely to a lot of that work and our strategic goals of creating a sense of belonging for all kids and all students. So, no further ado, Dr. Abrams, there you go. Hope I didn't steal your thunder. Just that little arrow. There you go. Pretty soon we'll be on the iPad, so.
Yeah, so just to continue with what Superintendent Gallagher was saying, essentially after we had these district, these state level meetings, we instigated a process at the Newburyport school and especially at the high school level to really dig into this stuff. So the first thing we did, we had a consultant from DESE and Novak Education named Pam Chu Sharif. We set up a day for her to come into the schools and really visit classrooms. We spent an entire day in March visiting Mullen, Knock, and high school classrooms. We got to over 30 classrooms, all subject areas across all disciplines. It was a really great day to see some of that work. At the end of the day, we talked about what she saw, and she was so complimentary about the things that she saw in terms of diversity of curriculum, diversity of instructional practices, and something that stuck with me and she repeated multiple times. She was so impressed with the kids, the smiles on their faces. She mentioned it 3 or 4 times, and she actually said that she works with districts throughout the state, and she doesn't always see that. And kids were approaching us, they were saying hi to us, they were engaging with us, and they were happy and smiling. So that kind of began our process, and we call that a landscape analysis, where we saw what was happening in schools. And then we really wanted to focus on one granular piece, one thing that we can really set into motion doing some of this work. And because I was kind of involved with this, we decided to engage the 6 to 12 English Language Arts department. So I reached out to them, I said, guys, this is the work we're doing, are you interested? And they were super excited to do some of this work. Mr. Marcos and Mr. Wolf got us substitutes for the day, and we really began an equity review cycle. And what we did, we met as a department, 6 to 12, and the first thing we did is we crafted a vision of equity. What does equity look like in the 6 to 12 English Language Arts department? Once we kind of wordsmithed that, and once we built that, once we agreed upon that, then we took out our curriculum maps and we said, hey, are we actually meeting this vision of equity? Are we actually doing what we think or say we'd like to do? And once we started digging into that analysis, it was fascinating. We found some real strengths in our analysis. For instance, as part of our vision of equity, it was dealing with historical complexities. And we found that in our 11th grade unit, which analyzes the Declaration of Independence, as well as some selected Federalist papers, we really did a nice job of treating that with historical complexities. On the flip side, we found that we had some gaps in our curriculum. In our 8th grade English, we have a unit that's built around the Romeo and Juliet text, and we thought we could do a better job at identifying some of the cultural attributes that gave rise to the kind of familial disputes between the Capulets and the Montagues. And honestly, that's kind of where we're at now. We have a meeting planned in June to follow up on that work, and it's really about coming up with some specific action plans to address those gaps. And then, as Superintendent Gallagher said, we're going to continue to meet with DESE. We have another meeting, I believe, next month to look at another piece of our the ABCD equity analysis. And then moving forward next year, we're going to look at the things that we put in place. Are they working? How can we improve? And where do we go from there? It's been a great process. I've loved being a part of it and the support that the district has given to us. And now, questions, comments? If you want to hear a story from me, I got stories. Yes.
You want to go first?
No, you go first.
So I'm just wondering, when you, what was your goal? Did the consultant give any areas of improvement or areas you could strengthen, and then led you to the goal that you have identified?
Yeah, not really. So she was more of a facilitator, and she kind of recognized some areas of weakness and some strengths that we had. But it was really about us constructing a vision of equity. This is what we think equity looks like in the 6 to 12 ELA department. And then once we created that, then it was up to us to identify the gaps and the strengths. It was really a positive process to have the time to look at the curriculum in that kind of minute level that we don't always have a chance to do. But it wasn't really led by her. It was more kind of from the ground up, which I think teachers appreciated.
What is your vision of equity? I don't know if you remember off the top of your head.
You know, I don't, but watch this. I almost brought it up. We were very proud of it, and I would love to read it to you. And it's still sort of rough draftish because it was only the first part of the process. So what we came up with, now mind you, this was 10 English teachers in a room trying to wordsmith. So in the 6 to 12 ELA department, educational equity supports students by honoring the complexities and identities and backgrounds while providing an array of opportunities to respond to the needs of students and eliminate barriers to success, with the goal of providing students the ability to find, access, share, and understand resources and become flourishing members of society. So we really pulled out those verbs: honoring complexities, eliminating barriers, ability to find resources, and those were the kind of verbs that we used to do our analysis. You know, that was our analytical lens to look at our curriculum.
Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was. I loved it.
Ms. Walker?
Yeah, so you guys will be continuing to meet. I'm curious if you'll get input from other non-teachers, other people, members of the community, or anything in the process of, I don't know, what else you're working on related to the curriculum, but.
Yeah, I don't, I'm going to say yes and no. I don't know if that's part of the process. I will tell you, one of the first things that we did is when we did our, we analyzed what we're doing in the district, and we had to look at it. So we had a very comprehensive rubric from DESE, and we said, you know, how are we with the A? The A would be academic expectations. And then we had to provide evidence that we do, you know, we're proficient, advanced. And some of the community stuff was part of our evidence there. Mm-hmm. So for instance, like with the Portrait of a Graduate, we had brought together 800 people. They had input. That's why we can vote ourselves as developing. I don't know if there will be as part of the process.
Okay. That's fine. I don't know much about the process, but I think it's, and if the point is to have the teachers develop this vision themselves, but I would be curious, everybody's vision of equity is very different, or personal perception of equity is very different. So if there's opportunity to get input from students and maybe other people from the community that maybe represent underrepresented.
And that's actually a great point, because I think, you know, working with the English department, I think the goal is to have that spread out to other departments and perhaps different cohorts, students, et cetera. Because one of the big pieces there was on that, the sense of belonging for students. And so I think the most important piece is asking students, you know, how do you feel in the school? Do you feel like you have a sense of belonging? Because even though we see a lot of kids smiling, maybe the kids that aren't smiling are the ones that we should be looking for.
Yeah, and I guess similarly, if you could think about ways to measure success, like how you're achieving that vision in the long term.
Dr. Abrams, that phrase, honoring complexities, is it's quite extraordinary, and with all of the controversy across the nation right now, the fact that our department, our English departments, are committed to honoring complexities as opposed to ignoring them or rejecting them is very, very powerful. And I really appreciate that you've done that. That's my comment. And my question is, have you acquired like a skill set that would allow you, once DESE is gone to replicate this with other departments in the district?
Yeah, I think that's essentially the plan, to convene other departments. Okay, let's put together this vision of an equity. We have some protocols to develop this, to wordsmith it, to envision it, and then to dig into the analysis. It was so integral for us to actually have curriculum maps to look at, to dig into, so we were all on the same page. And I thought it was very powerful for us to actually not just have the high school English department, but 6 to 12. So holistically, we can look at 7 years of a student's experience. What are they seeing in 6th grade as opposed to 11th grade? And allow us to see bigger gaps. Or maybe we think we have a gap at 11th grade, but actually, that's pretty well covered in 8th grade. Or how can we build on, what we're doing in 8th grade?
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I just want to, very similar to Dr. Abrams. So as we're working with the state, we're going to be continuing working with them next year. As the state's looking at developing, let me just get us back away. As the state's looking at developing the best practices, so we just, Dr. Abrams and the English department just focused on one area, which is just English and the academic piece. But we're taking an equity lens, for the whole child, like throughout the entire day. So what does equity look like from when they start school to the end of school, to extracurricular activities, and just really taking a look at that. And we're really excited. This has been, I think, for us, a very comprehensive process. The other piece that's been really beneficial with this working group is having the ability to brainstorm and partner with other districts that in some cases are like Newburyport, in other cases are not like Newburyport, and listening to some of the challenges around this work. So we anticipate of broadening our equity lens, throughout a student's life here in the Newburyport Public Schools. So I think this is the first step, and I think the state is looking at this first cohort of districts to, as they're developing the pilot program, say, oh, these are the things that worked for this year, and here are the things that we would need to work on. So, we're excited, and as we said, I think what captured our eye for this pilot program with the state is that sense of belongingness, right? The sense of belonging for kids and staff. That's what we've been saying for a few years. So when we began to participate in this cohort with other districts, that for us was what's fueling, I think, our, emphasis and impact on kids, creating that sense of belonging. And so we're excited for that work. So I just wanted to, as we're finishing, I think our last session's next month with the state, just wanted to, I've been putting that in my memo, but there's been a lot of great work going on. And we're going to continue to work with the consultant who'll be coming back too and look at other areas.
So does this have a life beyond this year?
Yes.
As far as what?
Yes, we'll start, we're focusing on, as Dr. Abrams said, some of our academics, and then expanding it throughout the entire district, which ties right back to our strategic plan, and then also the work we're doing with Michael Eatman, and having some of those constructive conversations around this work.
Great. I love what you said about working across 6 through 12. And I know that there's a lot of vertical alignment work going on in the district, so it just seems like that's a really nice tie-in. And maybe this could just be an additional lens to apply to the vertical alignment work moving forward.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming in, Dr.
Always a
Abrams.
pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have now our second look at the school committee meeting schedule. There are no changes since you saw it last week. I do love the idea of having some community input in the fall on the budget, but we didn't add that as a meeting. So I was thinking, we talked about maybe the summer retreat being a good place to talk about how we can capture more public community input on the budget process in the fall, and what that would look like. So I think it probably wouldn't look like this. I think it probably wouldn't look like a school committee meeting. So that's not on here. And as I said, I didn't make any changes. So I think we can just get a motion. This is policy BE.
Move to approve the school committee meeting schedule for 2023 to 2024 as presented.
Second?
Discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Subcommittee updates. Mr. Callahan, was there anything for finance? I know we're
It's
meeting,
Thursday.
and we're meeting next week. Does that sound right to you?
Well, now I'm all confused because we had the extra meeting and I don't know. I'll talk to Phil.
We had,
2 meetings last week. Phil's not here.
all right, well, just get something
It's usually
out.
the Thursday after the meeting, so it should be the 11th.
Right, okay, that sounds correct to me.
If anybody has any agenda items for FinCom, let me know.
Yeah, if I could just offer, Sarah and I, for Superintendent's Evaluation Committee, are going to set up a meeting with Lisa Marie and begin that process. So hopefully that'll happen in the next week or so.
Great.
I know that the policy report is going to be a little bit lengthier, so.
Yeah, and can we have can we remember to put the superintendent evaluation subcommittee report
Now,
on the,
yeah.
on the agenda going forward?
Put it on the,
Yeah, it's,
Sure.
it's typically we forget about it.
right, well, this is the time of year when we need to start thinking about it, so thank you. We can pop that on there for next time.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, well, you are up, Ms.
Okay.
Walker, with Policy Subcommittee.
Yes. So this is the first reading, so really the idea here is to make sure everybody understands what we're putting in front of you, and if you have any specific questions, if we need to address before we do the second reading. You know, basically the format here is pretty straightforward. We provided copies of the edited version, so we didn't put in 2 versions here. We just put the edited version, which is either any additions were shown in bold, or we also just indicated they were a full section addition. I didn't put a bold through the whole section. And then any areas that were deleted are shown in the strike through. I also handed out sort of cliff notes. These are a list of items that the MASC staff provided to us at our first meeting with them as we went through each section. So we didn't necessarily do exactly what that was recommended. There was some back and forth and discussion, but it'll give you some highlights of sort of what some of the key changes that were made. What I thought we could do tonight is just sort of scan through literally go through each policy, but not like spend a lot of detail unless people have specific questions, so that everybody's clear on what changes were made, if that's okay with everybody. So starting with section A, AA, there were no changes. That is the version that we have in our current policy. Next is file AB, also no change. That's the same as in the current policy. And anywhere that we didn't make changes, it was because MASC had either a similar version or there was no real reason to change it. The next item is AC-A, which is in our policies is AC-A. And we're proposing to delete this entire version and replace it with the MASC version, which is actually AC. So that section, AC, is a new section. It's now called Non-Discrimination Policy, including harassment and retaliation. We did review these sections related to harassment and non-discrimination against some of the input we had gotten from our attorney previously, because we knew this was something we had to update, and we had started this conversation about a year ago. So we'd gotten some input from the attorney, and these policies are consistent with the input we got. Any questions on that particular one? And you can see the reference in the notes was that the MASC version includes updates from the Attorney General's office, as well as updates to protected classes, and as I mentioned, combines harassment and retaliation. I didn't mention retaliation, but combines some of the wording we are required to include. Okay, so the next section in our current policies is AC-B. We're proposing to remove that section and add a new section, AC-R, which is consistent with the MASC version. And this one also updated in consultation with the AG's office, similar to the Newburyport version, but we had to, now I can't remember, policy members, why we have two sections that are called the same thing. Do you remember? I know there's a reason. So I'll find out about that, because I know there's a reason we have two policies that are named the same thing.
We'll just take it on faith.
I know we've asked this question, but,
Policies.
I think one is more definitions and the other is more procedural, but I'll clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have
I think one
different,
is a
they have
statement.
different file
They definitely have
letters, but
different
it
file
says-
numbers and different wording, it's just they have the same title, so I'll find out, I'll clarify that for next time. Okay. Any questions on those two at this point? Okay. So next one is ACA, which is actually a new section we don't currently have in our policies, so this is just right out of the MASC version. And this deals with non-discrimination on the basis of sex. Next one is ACAB, which we propose replacing entirely with the MASC version. And the notes were that the MASC version covers only sexual harassment, so that's, as I mentioned before, we had sort of reorganized these to make sure that we were putting them in the right places. So it's not like we're not dealing with harassment or sexual harassment, we're just putting them in the right places. And there, again, there was consultation with, for protected classes in the AG's office also. And that deals with both federal and state requirements for how to handle these complaints. Okay, the next one is ACE, which in our current policies is AC-C. There's no significant change here other than the change of handicap to disability. And you'll see that throughout. And then we did include a cross-reference to a related policy, IGB. Next one is, what is in our current policies is AA-B, and we're changing that to AD to just make sure it's properly matched to the MASC policies. Other than that, the main thing was just to simplify it. We kept our Clipper values in here, but we took out all the questions. We didn't feel like we need to reiterate everything about our mission statement in the policy. It can be, we can always add that and refine it as we update our strategic plan and do other related planning efforts, but we just wanted to simplify it. Primarily so it doesn't go out of date. Any questions about those? Okay. Next one is a new section, ADC, related to tobacco products on school premises being prohibited. We did not have that current version. We probably deal with it in our handbook and other places, but we wanted to make sure that we had the backing in our policies to make sure this was clear. Next section is ADDA, and I don't think there were any changes to this one that I remember. Yeah, so that one stayed as it was. ADDAR, also no changes here that I recall. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This was to update the, this was a new section. Sorry, this is one of the ones I didn't label as a new section, so I'll make sure that gets labeled as a new section. And this is to reflect the MASC version. Wherever that we were missing a policy that Mask had, we basically, as far as I remember, we said, oh, let's put it in, just so we, it's like we didn't object. There may be reasons not to have it. I mean, there may not be we may not be required to have it, but we felt like while we're going through this, we might as well add the MASC policies. Wellness policy is no change. That's something we've dealt with before, and we very recently reviewed it, so there were no recommended changes on that one. right, so that wraps up our policy review for section A. Section B is a lot longer, so I'll try to be a little quicker. Section BA, no changes to this, we kept it as is. BAA, we added a sentence related to the being concurrent with the summative evaluation of the superintendent, just to be consistent with what our current practice is going to be. File BB, this one was covered, the proposal was, or the recommendation was to remove those two sections because they are already covered under other policies. So we took the direction of the MASC staff to just delete those sections.
Can we bold and put in red that first paragraph? Particularly the autonomous and absolute authority within limitations of Mass General laws?
If you would like, yes. Okay. The other thing, I guess the other thing to just mention is we, rather than excerpting the charter language, we just refer to the charter language so that if it ever changes, which it probably won't, but if it ever does. And it also just reinforces, this is in the charter. We don't have to restate it. File BBA, we inserted a new section under personnel matters related to the power of the superintendent. Verifying that. File BB-AA, just modifying so we're gender neutral and making sure we're not using the wrong, I'm sorry, I think this was another one where we were inserting a new section. Yeah, this was, so we're basically just making sure that's consistent with the MASC policy. Next section, we're going to insert a new section, which is BBBA/BBBB. Again, try and just make sure we're consistent with what they have, particularly related to state requirements. We didn't have a section, the next section is BBBC. We didn't have anything related to school committee member resignation, so we put that in here. And then similarly, BBBE was related to unexpired term fulfillment. I think I just noticed here that some of the language, like select board or city council, we'll clarify that, so it's actually city council and not select board. So we'll update that one. I missed that. Next section, BCB, and our current policies, which we have updated or propose updating to BCA to be consistent with the MASC outline, and this is just gender neutral language. Next one is BCC/BCD. This is our policy, so no changes to this one. We didn't change it to make it different. BCA, which is now BDA, to be consistent, minor changes and a reference to the city charter. Similarly for BDB, very minor changes.
Oh, can I mention something I noticed looking this over on BDB, at the bottom under duties of the vice chair, there's one place where you need to fix the very end of this, to them.
Yep. Thank you for that.
I read duties of the vice chair, so.
Appreciate that.
Sure.
Next section, we propose deleting the entire version of BDD and replacing it with a new version, a little more simplified and straightforward. The previous one was more like a job description. This is actually the duties of the superintendent. BDE, this, I anticipate there might be some questions on this. So this is the clarification on the subcommittees of the school committee. To be consistent with MASC, we clarified that a subcommittee is members of the school committee only and doesn't include members of the public. There's another committee that can include members of the public, also not requiring that the chair of the school committee and the superintendent be ex officio members of all subcommittees. I mean, they're certainly welcome to still come to those, but they aren't necessarily by default members. Also, I would like for the chairs of the finance and superintendent evaluation to take a look at those descriptions. They were developed, I think, previously by former member Spalding to sort of fill in some statements around subcommittees, and if we could just make sure they read as simply as possible, but also capture the intent of the subcommittee, which I think finance, it's more than just the adoption of the budget, for example.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
The,
Superintendent evaluation could be expanded on as well.
yeah, I do have a question about that. Manages the process by which the superintendent is evaluated, setting goals and collecting data to measure their effectiveness. Goals for the evaluation, we're setting goals for the superintendent, it's just not clear what we're
I
setting.
think I'm looking to you to make some
Okay.
suggestions, yeah.
Sure.
And, because these were, like I said, these were not created by me. I think for the next time, if we could just simplify it.
Chances are Cole or myself are on the hook for these.
Well, I don't know. I mean, yeah. Member Spalding was trying to move it along, and I'm sure it just got.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
about the changes to the, taking out saying that members should only be from the school committee? Is that change just reflecting past practice or what MASC recommends?
It's consistent with MASC recommends, and the reason being is there are two types of committees that typically a school committee sets up, and a subcommittee is typically by practice is intended to be members of the subcommittee, members of this committee, and the relationship between the school committee is more direct versus in this case, the subcommittee and members of the committee making recommendations to the committee at large.
Right.
There can be input from outside members, but there's nobody voting at the subcommittee meeting. So it's
That makes sense.
votes of the subcommittee members are votes of the school committee members to making recommendations to like I said, the committee at large. So then the next section is the advisory committee, which is where we capture a bigger breadth of potential membership. Again, the role here is to report back to the school committee for a specific purpose. So, for example, I think a good example most recently is when we formed the Transportation Advisory Committee. We as a school committee voted on the purview of that advisory committee, and it's typically a default of a year unless there's a specific deadline we're trying to meet. It's not like gonna be an advisory committee isn't in effect forever. The membership can include people outside of the school committee. So, it gets into a little more detail on that. But it's just a different type of subcommittee. And again, it's still advisory to the school committee, but it's just a little different in its overall makeup and can be more flexible, I think, in who participates.
Is the intention of this to allow, again, is this just constructed of school committee members or staff?
It can be
and
staff.
beyond the
So
staff?
the point is, when you establish the advisory committee, you also indicate what the membership is gonna be. So it can be more than just school committee members.
Terrific.
But the idea is you have some school committee members or one school committee member. And then I think the other thing for both of these, because they're both reporting to the school committee and they have to comply with open meeting laws. So being very clear about that these are basically extensions of, in some way, of our acting body of the school committee, and therefore have to comply with all of those. The next section is BDFA, which is the school councils. Some minor changes here related to the, I think it was just the addition of the principal reference, which is consistent with the, how the state defines school councils. We also added the broadened parents/guardians of current students for representation. Go ahead,
We don't
Bruce.
specifically articulate community members need to be part of the school council, or is that in the state law?
We don't specifically indicate clear, I think we did talk about this at the committee. The only thing the state law requires is that there's parity between faculty and parents. But my understanding is that doesn't mean you can't have community members, it just means there has to be parity between the faculty and the parents or
Okay.
guardians, yeah.
Okay.
The school improvement plan bullet point
okay.
there,
Yeah,
where it,
which one, where is that? A little further down.
struck out the.
Yep.
So how's that gonna work? Did it get striken? Do you
Struck.
erase it because, it's state law,
'Cause
related,
we
or
address it in the,
somewhere else?
I think we felt that it was addressed adequately
I think it's in the
in
next
the school
section.
improvement plan section,
Okay.
which we didn't have before.
Okay.
But I'm wondering if we do reference the school council, yeah. The principal, in conjunction with the school council, shall be responsible for preparing a written school improvement plan. So wherever we were duplicating needlessly, is that a word? We were, I don't think.
I couldn't say stricken.
You guys are rubbing off on each other.
Man,
Anybody smell toast?
where's Dr. Abrams when we need him?
I think it's simply needlessly. Anyway, we were duplicating, we tried to simplify so that we weren't having to correct in multiple places when we changed a policy. Although many of these we won't change. Next section is school attorney, BGG. We didn't change anything except for the gender.
Can I just ask a question about that? So
Yeah.
there's nothing in there, so we don't approve the appointment of the school attorney every year. That's just something we leave. Because on the city level, we that has to be appointed every year and approved by the city council. I was just curious, because it says the school committee hires the legal counsel. I was just curious. I mean, has that happened? And I guess I'll defer to my elder committee members,
I
but,
think it happened quite a while ago, and it was really upon the recommendation of the superintendent.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so like right now, like the city council is essentially recommending the same thing on the city side. So, I mean, I'm going through that process, but I was just curious if we had something like that on the school side, but it doesn't seem like we do,
Yeah,
so.
The time that we changed attorneys was based on the recommendation at that time of the superintendent.
Okay.
To that point, we also don't hear about the assistant superintendent or the school nurse or the district doctor ever. And superintendent says, hey, I hired this great person for this job, and we say, all right. But it says in this that we're supposed to approve it.
Well, but it also says based on the recommendation of the
Yeah.
superintendent.
But I mean, there's never a formality, and it never is. He never comes up and says, hey, you guys all right with this? You know?
Hey, I want to change doctors.
I think past practice is, once you change, you get the approval of school committee. And then I think the understanding is they continue their employment unless,
I don't particularly care.
Right, but I'm
just saying
saying,
if it says that we're
unless
supposed to do it,
school
we don't
committee.
do it.
yeah.
Like when the new nurse came in, I'm sure she's wonderful.
We had
Except,
approval.
we didn't say, yes, you can hire this person though, which is how that is kind of the language is, that we are responsible to say, yes, you can indeed hire them, and then, they're under you directly. But, I don't know, I brought that up a couple years ago too. It's just, it's strange that it says that we do it and we don't.
I think,
I don't actually want to.
no, I
Be
understand,
involved in
right,
No, but you're right, though, it's written that we should be doing that.
right.
I mean,
Upon the recommendation,
of the superintendent,
right.
yeah.
So when we have new people like in those positions, we bring them in front of the school committee, like as our finalists, and this is, how we want to move forward. If school committee, if there was concerns with that, then we would redo the interview process.
The superintendent recommendation part is so that we don't bring in our own ringers, potentially.
The doctor one is the strangest thing to me because it's been the same person forever. How did that even happen? You just go out looking for community doctors to be the district doctor? I know
Yeah,
you didn't because
right.
he was already here.
Correct. I think for most districts, if people are happy among the school committee with that personnel, then you would continue that employment. If there's concerns with making a change, then school committee gets informed of the reasons why.
Thanks.
That would be almost come under the rubric of personnel, right? That would be like personnel issues.
School committee's a labor attorney. You have a lot to say on the labor attorney, and I think through our negotiations, you work closely with those attorneys, and and we're very fortunate, I think, that the McNulty Law Firm, I think if we were going through a negotiation or there was an issue where school committee members who are sitting on, negotiations who feel they're not being well represented, then you would also have, things like that, you would have input to have a discussion.
In the time that you've been here, we have changed attorneys for special education to the betterment of the district, I think, obviously. But that was a recommendation that you made.
Correct.
All right. So moving on to school committee meetings, I know we had discussed some of these issues, but we ended up with just leaving it the way it is. I'm gonna double check our notes on this, but I know that there was some question about the item C being problematic. But ultimately, we decided to keep it as is. So I would be happy to look at my notes on that one and figure out why we didn't change it. The next one is BEC, which is the executive session. We didn't change anything. BEDA, with notification of school committee meetings, we just added the current practice, which is a minimum of 48 hours prior to each meeting. The committee shall cause to be posted a listing of each subject, basically the agenda. We also took out a reference to our own policy manual. That was odd. Okay, BEDD is the rules of order. There's no mass equivalent because it's our rules of order, so no reason to change it. The voting method relates to guidelines related to remote meetings and stuff, so we thought we'd just leave it as is until pending legislation.
Is that still not resolved? They at least extended it, didn't they?
I think so, yeah.
They
and
did, yeah.
I'll double check. We are meeting with our mask representative again this month, so we can double check the status. Minutes, just adding some language based on recommendations. Again, I think this is probably current practice. The next one is BEDH. We propose replacing with the new mask version. This is specific to public comment, so this, again, was in consultation with their attorney, et cetera. Any questions on that? I might want to take a look for those of you who might. The one thing I would note is we didn't include our sort of rules of order, how we run the meeting. We basically just included in the policy what we're required to do.
Please. Number 4, after warning reserves the right to terminate speech was not constitutionally protected. Wasn't there just some sort of ruling
Yeah,
That was basically,
no, you can still warn the people that they can't, you know, it's still, you're still allowed to tell people not to be, or to give them a warning, basically. We talked about this at our policy meeting. It's just how far you can go beyond that.
and are we gonna actually have a written down, I wanna speak, like city council does? If that's the first thing on this? We talked
Have
about
what?
that at one point, that when people wanna do public comment, they come in and they sign their name on a sheet, like
We
they do
do,
with council.
we do
So
actually have.
Joanne
a
has
parent
that
pack.
ready to go. We just need someone to come in and
Just
sign up.
we
Yeah,
just
we've
need somebody
actually been
to
doing
make
that,
public
right?
comment.
Someone's come in and sign up, but no one's actually.
Wait, no one's been doing
We've
it.
had that before. Usually they just walk up and sign it and then do the public comment.
I've never seen someone
Oh,
sign
really?
up for school.
No,
committee,
we've had
ever.
that
Oh, yeah.
before.
They come in and they say their name, do their bit, and leave, but there's never been a sign-in sheet.
No, that's not true.
Yeah.
5 years, I know she does.
I
but
was
it's
here
never
as
been-
long as you have. I mean, I'm telling you right now, we used to have a sign-in sheet there.
Okay, so anyway,
Yeah, she,
Yeah.
Never seen it.
no, she's ready. We're ready, yeah.
I just wanna check that number 4 again, because that was a big deal.
sure, we can,
when-
yeah, we can give you, I know we talked about it quite extensively. I don't know, Steve and Bruce, if you recall any of the discussion, but we can definitely talk about it next time too.
Yeah, there's, the state has a broader perspective on what is allowable in terms of comments than we had. So we're gonna have to make the adjustment to comply with the state.
But I think, we talked about this before, but there is some restriction on the freedom of speech related to being, basically, disrespectful in a meeting. We felt that this doesn't preclude that person being disrespectful. You're still allowed to give them a warning. It's how far beyond that. They're not prohibited from it.
Yeah.
They're just being requested to act correctly, civilly.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about number 1?
Yeah.
Is that saying the whole public comment can only be 15 minutes long? We've had hours of public comment before.
Very
Good
short.
point. Yeah, we can change
that's
that. I think
surprising.
that was
Yeah.
a suggested practice versus what we currently practice.
Well,
Well,
if-
let me check, because we didn't have that in our initial.
I've seen that.
Yeah, good
like,
catch.
before from other school committees, or right, like later start thing.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
well, you know, another way,
Reopening schools took like 2 days.
yeah, another way to do that is to say that the standard is 15 minutes.
50 minutes, depending on
And
the,
then we can decide to extend,
yeah.
you know, so you could put something in there that, to that effect.
Yeah, we can change, we can add that unless waived by the school committee. I think that's probably the simplest way to.
And that's where using a sign-up sheet, if you have a sign-up sheet, 20 people, you know, you determine, or the chair determines how much time each should be allowed, so it could be 2 minutes apiece, so it's 40 minutes.
And so we're not gonna do that the public comment should be relevant to what's on the agenda at that meeting, like council does?
I think we can.
Not actually, I don't know that we're allowed to do that.
Somebody should tell.
I believe that
City
we
council.
are. If you look at the recent state Supreme Court ruling, it did include that you are allowed to make it relevant to the
Okay,
agenda.
we can, I'll
Yeah.
ask our MASC representative as well.
I'm not sure if that's something we need to include. I mean, I'm happy to
Well-
hear other opinions, but
I just wanna have it match what the city council does. Like, it's 2 public bodies that have the same process, but they're wildly different. So, when you go to city council meetings, it has to be an agenda item. You can't just go up and start rambling about something.
I guess I'm
And
just
that just kinda
thinking
keeps
if,
the meeting, going,
yeah.
you know?
I mean, we have such little public comment anyway. I just feel like if a parent has something that they want to tell us, I'd like to be able to hear what they want to tell us. And it's, you know, if you look at our agenda right now, like, I'm not sure parents might have a whole lot to say on our agenda, and I'd like them to be able to come forward.
I
Well,
just
we're-
don't think we should have different rules in the council. It's the
Well,
same
I would
public
say,
body
if,
rules, you know?
a
We can go
comment
over it
back,
with them.
yeah, I mean, I would say a comment back on that, I think when we feel that there's a practice that is not, that we don't agree with, you know, which frankly, I tend to agree with Member Higgins. There are probably reasons city council limits to agenda items, basically just because of there's a lot more that they're maybe dealing with. But at this point, I would tend to say that I would prefer not to be consistent with city council, because I personally would like to give people the ability to come and address the committee.
Okay, we'll talk about it with with Dorothy, I guess. See what she
Yeah,
says, because
I
it's
can
all
do
part of, all part of the same
The
thing.
other thing is, I think we don't have to include everything in our policy. Like, we can also have guidelines that are outside of our policy if we want, so we can confirm that too.
Having, along with the mayor and Mr. Cole, and having sat through school committee meetings that went 6 hours because there was 2.5 hours of comment, a lot of which was repetitive, people saying exactly the same thing, in some cases reading the same thing. I would be interested in hearing what Mask has to say about that. Whether
Yeah,
we can
we
set,
can definitely ask them.
yeah.
BEE, 2 versions match, so no changes. BG, no change.
Well-
I mean, no, sorry, there's a strike through. The reference to the National School Board Association. BGB, no change. And BGC, no change. BGB, no change. BGF, suspension of policies, is a new section. Very short. Next section, BHC, updated it with the mask version. I think specifically there was a section on staff communications. Next one is BHE, which was also replaced with the proposed to be replaced with the mask version. Just to be more current. EIA, no change except for the cross-reference. DIBA, new section. And that concludes the B section. All right, C, a little quicker. CA, no change except for gender neutrality. Same with CB, we also corrected the numbering. CBD is a new section. CBI, we replaced with the MASC version. CCB just corrected, removed the reference to line and staff relations. CE, just gender neutrality. CH, no change. CHA and CHC were combined into the new CHA/CHC version. CHCA, proposed replacing that with the mask version. It does sort of get into, it's a little broader, was the recommendation. Which, again, we're trying not to be too specific in our policies. So that we feel really good. And then the last one is just recommending deleting it. Oh, sorry. And then CM, the school district annual report. Just the change was to reference the city charter. All right, so that's our C, and that's it. I think probably before the end of the year, we won't necessarily bring any more sections to the school committee, although we are making good progress. We are meeting again this month. Well, we'll see. I don't know if we'll be able to get 2 readings in them. So the next section we'll review is section D. So there's a surprise, which we'll do at the next monthly meeting. I believe it's next week.
So what's the next step for us as far
So
as
second
the
reading
approval
will be
process?
Will be next meeting, basically.
For
And-
all of that?
Yes.
Or,
Yeah, and so basically, what I would recommend is, I'll report back on anything we brought up today. If there are changes, that committee members wanna make, they can propose those changes at the next meeting, as long as it's not a substantial change to what we read tonight, and it's just fine tuning or clarifying, then we can just vote on the revised versions next time.
Great.
So what I'll probably do is just give you the same format that we had tonight, making sure that we're clear on what's new and what's deleted. Unless you want just the clean version. Because in
No, I
the
don't
past, we've provided both the track changes and the clean version. I feel like that's a little bit duplicative, but I just want to make sure.
With a single
people-
policy, that's reasonable, but with
Okay.
all of this, I
Yeah,
think
so people
this
are
is
okay,
fine.
we'll just,
Yeah.
to keep this simple, we'll just show the proposed changes. Okay.
So one thing that came up was the descriptions of the
Yeah.
subcommittees. Would it be helpful maybe for the chairs to get those to you in advance?
Oh, definitely, that's
Of
my hope,
the
if that
meeting.
wasn't clear.
That-
I'll bug you if we don't get them, if I don't get them in time for the next one.
Great. Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments?
I just want to commend Ms. Walker for all of this hard work. Our meetings are very on task and organized, and we're getting through a lot. So thank you for taking the lead on this. It's very beneficial.
You're welcome, it definitely helps to have a staff person there. As you can see, she goes through basically an audit. It's been very helpful. And obviously, Steve and Bruce have a long history with all of these policies too, so their insight has been really helpful. I would also just add, if people, as you're looking over these and you have additional questions, I think the best thing is to just share those questions with me, and if we can talk about a policy, we will, or if they're just things that we need to reference to Dorothy, who's our mass contact, before the next meeting, we can do that. So if you have if you want to spend some more time delving deeper into these policies, feel free to do that. And just get back to me with any questions.
Great. It looks like you're meeting a week from tonight. Is that correct?
Thank you, that
Okay.
sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, it's at the bottom of our agenda. Excellent. Okay, thank you. Superintendent's report.
All right. It's a brief report tonight, since we've seen each other every night from last week, so you know when I'm eating for dinner later? No, I am. First of all, let's see. So just an update on the Walker Associates. So they're still working with us. They've observed over 20 different special education classrooms throughout the district. Additionally, they've held focus group with building administrators, teachers, and related service providers, and have met with IAs in all 4 schools. This morning, they worked at the high school with our transition program. It's our post-grad program for students with disabilities ages 18 to 22. At the end of the school day, they met with the pre-K IAs, and they've had focus group discussions with our BCBAs throughout the district. They've finished planning up their work this week with the district, and then they'll provide us their findings within a week or 2. So I think that will be beneficial as we're really taking a look at all of our programming and programming needs. And then taking the lens of, obviously, staffing and support and some of the things we've been talking about for the past few months. Any questions on that at this point? All right. Our iPad purchases up to this point, so we have 321 families that are participating. Right now, we have 102 8th grade families, 112 9th grade families, and that's kind of what we're anticipating. Some of the younger grades, really, getting involved in the program. Right now, grade 10, we have 63. In grade 11, we have 40 students. I think we may extend it one more time by the end of this week, because I've received calls that some parents want to participate, but they, might have missed the deadline, so I think we'll extend it for another few days. And the reason why we need to have the deadline is because we have to order the devices and make sure they're ready to come in and set up. We also working with the district. This was an idea that we had. So school department employees, which would also include school committee members, if interested, can take advantage of the lease-to-own model too, which some of the our educators would like to have their own device, but can defray the cost over a couple of years. So that's, we're excited to offer that to our staff and all employees within the district. The next piece is just highlighting some of the upcoming events. We have the Knock Musical Oklahoma, which is opening this week, May 4th and 5th, 7 p.m. and May 6th, 2 p.m. Our policy subcommittee meeting is coming up on May 8th. Our NHS School Council is May 9th. CPAC meeting is going to be Wednesday, May 10th at 6 p.m. Early release days is going to be Friday, May 12th. Our grade 5 STEM showcase is Friday, May 12th at 6 p.m. NHS music concert is going to be Monday, May 15th at 7 p.m. And our NHS academic awards night is Tuesday, May 16th at 6:30, and our waterfront festival is going to be held on Saturday, May 20th from 12 to 4. So those are some of the exciting things. It's a very busy time, May and June, for the end of the school year. There's going to be a lot of great events for families to come out to, and also a lot of student recognitions for their hard work. So come on out if you're listening and attend some of those events. And also those events are on our within the school committee packet. So, and that's my superintendent's report.
Great. Do we have any new business? Yes.
It's not quite business, but I went to the Newburyport Chess Club final championship match last week. 150 kids showed up.
I saw the photo.
Yeah,
Quite
there's
a
roughly
crowd.
38 or something kids actually part of the club, but 150 kids were there during Clipper Block, and Tyler Chorbanian won the match. I had to leave before the end of it, but apparently it had something to do with time, which goes beyond my pay grade and what I know about chess. But it was really cool, It's like all these kids just like watching two other kids play chess, and they're super funny about it too. Like it was being broadcast on something while they were playing, and then my kid was live streaming on Instagram. If you want some laughs, you should check out that Instagram profile because it's very funny. They'll do they'll put the kids' heads on Godzilla versus whatever the other monster is. It's very, very funny. But a bunch of kids had the hoodies on, and those were all paid for by a community member. I don't know if you knew that. She donated up to $1,000, so I think 37 kids bought or received the hoodies, and they look like an athletic hoodie, but they say chess club instead of football. Very cool.
Love it.
Tough way to lose time.
Yeah, I guess it was a blitz thing, so the games were like super fast, and
I don't know. They have those clocks, clocking.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
What's that?
Cool. Do we have any other new business? All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.